This broadcast is brought to you by Johnson & Johnson. You wake up in the morning, get your coffee made, and go through your morning routine. You head off to work for the day. The morning portion of your workday goes smoothly. As lunch approaches, you feel a headache coming on from your hard working all morning, making phone calls and sending emails. One thing you can think of to help relieve the pain: Tylenol. The sooner the pain is gone, the better, so you take the Tylenol Extra Strength capsules. Taking Tylenol Extra Strength is an everyday thing for billions of people around the world. Unfortunately, for 7 innocent people living in the Chicago area, taking the Tylenol Extra Strength capsules brought them to their deaths. As the public relations spokesperson for Johnson & Johnson, it's my duty to remind you all of this hard time and how Johnson & Johnson kept the professionalism throughout this crisis and how to learn from this experience. 6 years ago, there had been 7 deaths in the Chicago area that had all happened in a fast and traumatic amount of time. We joined in the mourning of Mary Kellerman, 12, who complained of waking up with a cold, Adam Janis, 27, who was thought to have passed from a massive heart attack, Janis's brother and sister-in-law, Stanley, 25, and Teresa, 19, who complained of throbbing headaches while mourning the death of Adam, and 3 others, Mary McFarland, 35, Paula Prince, 35, and Mary Weiner, 27. The one link with all of these deaths, with these 7 people, they all took Tylenol Extra Strength capsules the days of their death. According to Time magazine, the Tylenol murders had started with 12-year-old Mary Kellerman and continued on throughout the days with the Janices, McFarland, Prince, and Weiner. The publicity about the cyanide-laced capsules immediately caused a nationwide panic. A hospital in Chicago received 700 telephone calls about Tylenol in one day. People in cities across the country were admitted to hospitals in suspicion of poisoning by cyanide. At first, there had been no connection made between the deaths of these 7 people. On testing the Tylenol Extra Strength capsules after finding out each person had taken at least one on the day of their deaths, it was found that the capsules these people ingested were laced with a poison called potassium cyanide. The amount of potassium cyanide in these Tylenol Extra Strength capsules were at a level toxic enough to provide thousands of fatal doses around the United States. The conclusions of these tests were most likely tampering with the drug while in the store on the shelves and not while in the factory being made. McNeil Consumer Products and Johnson & Johnson manufactured these Tylenol capsules. Many people had assumed that the capsules were poisoned while being manufactured in the factory. The public relations decision made as a result of the Tylenol crisis arrived in 2 phases. According to the New York Times, the first phase was the actual handling of the crisis. The comeback of both Johnson & Johnson and Tylenol was the second phase in the public relations plan. The planning for the Phase 2 began almost as soon as the Phase 1 was being implemented. Back when this plan was made, it was unusual for such a large company to do such a large recall of products. Many other large companies had put the companies first and not the consumers, but had no luck and ended up making their reputations worse instead of owning up to it and taking the products away. An example of this is that Johnson & Johnson had learned from was Source Perrier water. Source Perrier had a crisis when it was found out that there were traces of benzene in their bottled water. Instead of taking the blame and recalling it for the time being, Source Perrier gave the blame to an isolated incident and only recalled a small number in the U.S. When the benzene was found in waters in Europe, there was a worldwide recall of the product, and it was found out that consumers around the world were drinking contaminated water. Source Perrier was very harshly judged by the media. Johnson & Johnson had an active role in the media to keep customers away from using their Tylenol brand. According to History.com, they called for a massive recall of their products by recalling more than 31 million bottles of Tylenol Extra Strength. McNeil and Johnson & Johnson had offered replacement capsules to the people who have purchased the Tylenol Extra Strength and a reward for anyone who had information leading to why these capsules had been tainted with the poison. Luckily, after testing, it was found that the potassium cyanide poisoning was done after the Tylenol Extra Strengths were out of the factory, according to Time magazine. Tylenol's market share had actually rebounded, and the tarnished image of the brand Johnson & Johnson had been significantly repaired. Because the Tylenol brand had 1.2 billion analgesic market, the incident had made this market plunge from 37% to 7%, according to the New York Times. Phase 2 of their plan was to make a comeback with their products. Many people had stopped buying the Tylenol products. Tylenol had to handle this situation as positively as they could after hearing of 7 deaths brought on by their own products. The pharmaceutical and food industries dramatically improved their packaging, instituting tamper-proof seals, which included foil seals and other features that would make it obvious if a consumer had foul play with the capsules. McNeil Consumer Products offered $2.50 off coupons that were good to put towards any Tylenol product. Also, the salespeople at McNeil made a new pricing program into effect by giving consumer discounts on their products as high as 25%, according to New York Times. With this, we added a new advertising program, which was launched in 1983. Over 2,250 salespeople from Johnson & Johnson domestic affiliates were asked by Johnson & Johnson to make presentations to people in the medical community. These presentations were made by the millions to promote support for the reintroduction of Tylenol. The Tylenol comeback was a great success, and many executives attribute the success of the comeback to the quick actions of the corporation at the onset of the Tylenol crisis. They think that if Johnson & Johnson had not been so direct in protecting the public interest, Tylenol capsules would not have reemerged so easily, according to History.com. These improvements in packaging had soon spread to all over-the-counter medicines. After fixing the bottles for better protection, the company also introduced a new version of the pills called the caplet. This pill is also coated with a slick and easy-to-swallow gelatin, but is much harder to tamper with than the old capsules, which could easily be opened and contaminated. The U.S. Congress passed a bill to make tampering with the over-the-counter medicine a federal offense, according to Time magazine. As you can see, we have come here today to continue to spread the story of Tylenol Extra Strength capsules, because this crisis can help out large and small companies all over the world. We like to show that major companies can make mistakes or products get tampered with, but there are ways to overcome. Without this crisis, the over-the-counter medications would not have made such a great protection from other contaminations with other medications. One bad thing can lead to more positive things and new learning. We are not happy about what had happened in Chicago 6 years ago, but we are happy about the positive aspects that have came out of the crisis. Thank you for listening in on this broadcast.